Welcome to the stage, please, Rahil of Unbound from my team. In conversation with global leader Tata, please welcome Gopichan Katragada and Rahil to the stage. Thank you very much.
Test.
Very comfortable.
It is. Some say like me. Anyway, guys, thank you all for being here at 3:53 on Tuesday. I promise not to take too much of your time. But we have someone very interesting with us today. The panel before us spoke about legacy. Well, this is the granddaddy of legacy. The Tata Group. Tata, of course, is probably India's most famous company. It's, what, 150 years old?
This month, June.
150?
Yeah, 1868 June is the founding.
And under you guys, you have something like over 100 companies, and I have a list and things like tea, salt, healthcare, medicine, trucks, cars, communications. I don't know what that means, but it's a lot of things. So I guess as a group CTO for a group that has 100 over companies under you, how does it work?
So it's, first of all, you have to focus. So it's not 100 companies for me. It is the companies which matter are those who can use technology and who need technology. So it boils down to about 15 for me. But really, even with 15, it covers a range of markets. So rather than focus on the market outcomes alone, I have to abstract it at the technology level, observe from a vantage point, look for synergies between companies, look for gaps where we currently don't have a product or a service, and also look at practices such as innovation and bring that to companies as well. So that's sort of how my role works.
So I mean, how do you look at things like the startup revolution, where companies can start up, become worth $1 billion in a couple of years, and that's it? How do you view something like that?
See, the way I look at the Tata Group, and especially Tata Sons, the parent, is that we are a 150-year-old, $150 billion startup. Most of the decisions that we are taking on a day-to-day basis are similar to what a startup would be doing as well. So we have to be nimble, and we are. We are at Tata Sons, a very small organization. My team is extremely small. They work in a startup mode. They're hungry for success, same as a startup is. So that's how you have to deal with it.
Going beyond that, what would you say is your key innovation mindset when going forward?
So the Tata Group and Tata Sons, what drives innovation for 150 years and what will drive innovation beyond is the sense of purpose. Many of the people in the audience might not know that the way we are structured is that Tata Sons is the parent of the Tata Group. We are in turn owned by Tata Trust. 66% of the income that we get at Tata Sons goes back into charity through Tata Trust. There is no other company in the world which does this. 66% of the income that we generate goes back through Tata Trust into charitable contributions. I would love to have that money and do more technology, but that's how we are structured. So the sense of purpose and the founders' view that the community is not another stakeholder in what we do, it is the very purpose of what we do. So when you look at the community and include the environment and look into the future, there's always going to be innovation because the community's needs are changing constantly. We have climate change issues. So while we balance the needs of the community and the needs of the environment, that leads to even more innovation. In fact, everything which is out there has to be created anew because of the environmental impact that we are having. In fact, today is also the World Environment Day, so I have to make that point.
Yes, I knew that. Not really. So on the topic of innovation, of course, India is such a hotbed for it. But people seem to not fully understand how to work with Indian companies, how to make a dent in India. What advice would you have?
See, in India, to work with Indian companies, and I did it, I was part of GE, and we set up the John F. Welch Technology Center in partnership with the Tatas. So much of our engineering workforce initially was a joint venture between the Tatas and GE. What you require is a lot of patience. What you require is our relationships. So without these, very difficult to do business in India. Patience, things move slow, but when you engage, then it's long term. And relationships, because the processes in Indian companies are non-existent. So you have to work based on relationships.
So that means, would you recommend that anyone out here who wants to go to India and make a dent, you got to make friends first?
Honestly, you have to make friends first.
So how would someone approach you if they wanted to work with Tata?
So I'm available on email. You can contact me after this conversation as well. G. Katragadda, that's my first initial and the last name at tata.com.
Are you sure you want to do that?
I did that.
You sure? Because this is being live streamed, you know. Okay. I think we signed something for that. So would you say that Tata is an Indian company? Because to many people, including myself, I grew up with many Tata products. Would you say it is quintessentially Indian?
So from the beginning, the Tata Group has been global. So when we set up our first steel plant, Jamshedji Tata went and got the first engineer from the US to set up the steel plant. So from that standpoint, we were never shy of reaching out into talent globally. Our markets are global, so we have more than 60%, closer to 70% of our revenues coming from outside of India. So we are a global company in that sense. But we are an Indian company. We are an Indian headquartered company, and the value system that we bring to the table is Indian. There are two things which hold the Tata Group companies together. One is the Tata Code of Conduct, and the other is the Tata Business Excellence Model. The Tata Code of Conduct has been the same from the very beginning, and is very different than any company which is out there, Indian or global. In that sense, it stands on its own. The Business Excellence Model is based on the Malcolm Baldrige model, so that in that sense, it's a global model.
So what we've seen with China in the last couple of years, with these massive companies going on buying sprees across the world, I mean, are we going to see something similar coming out of India, not just from Tata, but from the Reliances, the Hindujas, and other conglomerates like that?
You will see a thoughtful process, and where it makes sense, where expansion will add to the vision of the organizations, you will see definitely companies going for that. These companies have generated wealth, and they'll be looking to deploy that wealth in order to make a difference and impact in the communities.
So how do you view what's happening in China? Any lessons that the Tata Group is taking as you look to expand more?
No, absolutely. One of the things which Chairman Chandra has articulated for the group is that in order to continue to have profitable growth, you need to think about scale, synergy, and simplification. And the best place to learn about scale is from China. So we had visited as a leadership team and visited 40 companies in a week. And what for me was amazing is that no company, big or small, talked about anything less than 250 million subscribers or 250 million customers. I think that sort of thinking in India, Tatas have, but we definitely can learn from China as well.
So it's interesting. So do you feel that the Tata Group is starting to pivot more in that direction?
So I think at this point of time, Rahil, what is most important for the Tata Group to do is recognize that there is a large untapped market in India as well. I'll give you an example. In the IT domain, India provides some of the most number of resources for the world. But Indian companies themselves actually use IT the least. So we are ranked by the Global Innovation Index at 110 out of 140 countries in the use of IT. So there is significant amount of market in India which is untapped. And I think that it is important for a group like the Tata Group to convert that, being in India, headquartered in India, to convert that, while continuing to play in the global market. So right now, we need to expand the local presence and then continue global growth as well.
Going back towards your point on India being such a hub for IT, I mean, what do you, a classic industry in India that's employed millions has been things like the call centers, stuff like that. Now with automation and a lot of it being very advanced, you see entire industries in India being upended by automation.
I think that automation is going to make a big impact. Let me give you a few examples of what we are doing ourselves. TCS, one of our IT companies, used to make its revenues basically by deploying very highly skilled workforce in the IT arena. No longer will this model be valid in the short term as well as in the long term. So starting 15 years ago, they were working on a product called Ignio. Ignio is an AI-based product. It sits on your networks, observes the behavior of your networks, and before even a problem occurs, fixes it. And also it can deploy at scale with zero manpower, large enterprise systems, so based on AI. So it is not that we will get disrupted, we are disrupting ourselves. But what we are trying to do is create jobs in automation. Just like we have been the source for the world's IT needs, we can be the source for the world's automation needs. So that's one example of how we are looking at things. But even in other areas, so my own team, as an example, has deployed drone-based pesticide spraying. Right, so the drones itself we do not work on. There are great companies which are working on that. But what we work on is the payload, extending the amount of payload that the drone can carry, 10 to 15 kgs, carrying pesticide, reduce the amount of pesticide being used by 10x, increase the speed of pesticide spraying by 10x, and this will obviously displace labor. But the fact is that we're doing it in an area where the labor is going to be seasonal, part-time. They have to be removed from what they're doing in order to do this. And also, we are working with Harvard Engineering to develop co-robots, exoskeletons, to be able to combine man and machine for higher productivity. So while we are automating, we are doing it with consciousness of the demographics in regions that we are in. And we believe that as we automate, new jobs will be created. Some of the jobs that will be created, we are not even aware what those will be. The world will move towards more and more creative economies. And that's where we will play and we'll create jobs as well.
Fantastic. But how about here in Southeast Asia? I mean, we're an incredibly fragmented market. 600 million people, different socioeconomic status. What do you feel that is going to do for us here in Southeast Asia?
The automation? See, one of the aspects of AI and neural networks and all the things that we talked about today is data. And people will start talking more and more about data privacy. Where is that data going to come from? It's going to come from people. So as we move forward and you think about the future of work, this concept of 8-hour work was introduced by the industrial age. That is not sacrosanct. It will go away. People will work lesser hours and more people will work productively. They will be aided by automation. But the data itself, as far as, let's say, healthcare applications, will come from humans. So there will be folks who are working just generating data by wearing sensors. So there is a lot which we do not know and how it will shape, but we can see that happening already.
Fantastic. Actually, I'm just being told we don't have that much time left, so 2 more questions, very quick. Firstly, what are some of the big challenges that you're working on right now as CTO of Tata?
So we picked 4 areas that we believe will meet some criteria that we set for ourselves. The criteria being that if we work on a program, it has to have a potential of $100 million of profit each year, and it should be able to impact 100 million people. So the areas that we picked, number 1 was energy, climate change. So energy continues to be a focal area. We have developed and deployed fuel cell, a closed cathode fuel cell, first time in the world for telecom tower. Closed cathode is important in regions such as India, where heat and dust will mean that if you enclose the system, it's going to perform better. So it's the first time that anybody has deployed that. And this was done in partnership with multiple Tata Group companies, as well as a startup based out of Germany. So we have a collaborative approach to that. We are working on graphene as an energy efficient material. We have a very interesting approach where material, which is available primarily in India, it's called seed lac. It is lakka in India. It is the red material which is produced by an insect interacting with a tree, both of which are Indian. And that resin which is produced is a starting point for graphene, which makes it low cost. It's also lower grade, but it's good for high volume applications. So we've already deployed it in the market. That's something, again, which from my team, we have championed it. We have set up a COE with Tata Steel and IIT Madras and my team working together on that. So that's on the energy side. On the farms and food and wellness side is another area that we picked, and I talked about bringing technology into agriculture. One example I gave you was that of drone-based aerial spraying, but there is much more that we are working on as far as agriculture itself is concerned. And in food, the companies are working on things like fructooligosaccharides and galactooligosaccharides, which are prebiotics. So our gut has bacteria which are good if you treat the gut well. So we give you prebiotics so that the conditions are such that you have the right kind of bacteria and you have great gut health, which then determines the rest of the health of the body. These are just examples which I'm sharing with you. Another aspect of the gut bacteria and the microbiota on our human body, all the bacterial ecosystems on your human body, they're actually good. So you can use them as for detecting diseases. So we have actually developed, TCS has developed technologies to look at microbiota and colorectal cancer, and it's a biomarker for colorectal cancer with a high grade of accuracy. Similarly, we can do breast cancer, we can do preterm birth with very high accuracy, just looking at various bacterial populations. So that is in the food and wellness area. On our factory side, we've deployed, it's no rocket science, but we needed a factory safety wearable for our factory workers. It looks at standard things like skin temperature and pulse rate, but then it also looks at motionlessness, fall, it looks at geofencing, and it can go into, of course, our factory floors, but it can also go into truck drivers, it can look at elderly care, and so on. So that's another area, our factories and fleets, that we are interested in developing solutions for. And finally, India will be adding 500 million new consumers in the near term. So we would like to look at consumers and their needs as another area. There again, there are several areas that we are working on. Long answer, Rahul, but you...
It's long but good, like many things. Well, I think we're out of time, so could I please have a round of applause for Gopi?
Pleasure, thank you.
And a small one for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.